Hey guys, this is Hunter Levine, and thanks for checking out the Captain's Collective podcast, brought to you by Skinny Water Culture, Turtlebox Audio, Florida Fishing Products, My Captain, Purpose Built Optics, Yeti Coolers, and the Drifter Fish Club. In the last episode in this series, I sat down with Casey Anderson and we discussed what AI is and what its implications might be in the outdoor world today. In this episode, we sit down with our friend Jay Johnson, who's had a long career in the outdoor world, including geobass and geofish, and have a discussion about how do we discerningly think about the pros and cons, the potential positives and negatives that surround the ever-changing, always advancing world of AI. And I think this conversation is really going to be a helpful one as we begin to formulate our own views on the situation. So we hope that you guys enjoy. Stick around for the third episode where we actually invite AI to join the conversation and dive into some really important topics. We're so grateful that you guys are listening. We hope that you enjoy. This is the Captain's Collective.
All right, here we are. Podcast number 2, diving into AI and technology and the effects that it will and might have on the fishing community. We got Jay Johnson here, who is not only just been a great guy in the fishing industry, but also the host of where we're hanging out right now and enjoying some awesome food. What is it that's like buffalo sausage or?
Yeah, a boar and buffalo.
Boar and buffalo sausage. Just pretty casual evening dining on some boar and buffalo sausage. And, opening up this opportunity to dive into something I think is really important, allow Jay to maybe share some concerns, perspective into it. And we thought it would just be helpful to open up a conversation around it. So we've been talking about, if you haven't listened to the first podcast with Casey on AI and ChatGPT, you might want to go ahead and do that first. But really at the end of the day, the advancements in technology are going to be a double-edged sword, and there's going to be good things, there's going to be bad things. And there's also a responsibility that people who are leaders in the fishing and the outdoor space are going to have to try to help deter and direct what is happening with the culture and the technology. And excited to dive into that with you two. Jay, just off the bat, I know that you're not, I get with Casey in the car and you can tell like Casey's been just like pouring into this stuff and hanging out here with you today. I know that you're not somebody who has spent a ton of time looking into ChatGPT and AI, but you've spent a lot of time thinking about the culture and the landscape of the fishing community. What is your first initial impression on just hearing some of the stuff that Casey shared?
Well, okay, so yeah, I think it's very important to say I know nothing about AI, basically nothing. But I've been thinking about it a whole bunch, as you said. And my thoughts are always on towards the long game of something. So some countries are good about short games. Some countries don't have enough history to have a long game. And some countries have only thought about long game. And I think that long game is important. I think that we're not going to lose. We're not going to have progression deficit because if we're thinking long game.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've been thinking about lately is, what is the world, all my life, if someone said, what, if you could live in any time, what time would you live? And it's always been 1,000 years from now. I want to see how it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to experience that setup, And then I start, and this might be more so from the creative thing, because I think from the little I know about AI, the medical field is going to be greatly advanced, and we're all of the things that I have not the capability of seeing, and potentially all of us don't have the capability of
mm-hmm.
witnessing. There's going to be so many insurmountable obstacles surmounted because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it comes to exploration and creativity, what I worry about, and then I started looking into the future with my crystal ball, is that now when someone says, "What era would you want to live in?" And as a fisherman, right, we should be like, well, I want to live 500 years ago. because the fly fishing would be incredible. But I've never had that feeling. I'm like, well, I'm down to just see what happened. Now, if you homogenize the human experience into something that everybody, and I understand that you train AI to a point, but if you homogenize that experience and homogenize the human experience of creativity and exploration. Now, exploration is a very interesting situation that I feel like I have some, I have, a good perspective on, and sometimes I've been into places where someone else has been, but to me it was new, and I purposely don't ask Google or the internet, like, what am I coming into, and before Google, it was like Lonely Planet and the books and whatnot. It's like what Lonely Planet does, and I think it's awesome, right? I think it's awesome for the person that's gonna, like, I travel once a year. I saved all year to do this. I need to know as much as I can before going in. I 100% understand, but my concern is the true explorer that appreciates the learning it for yourself. If you train something through multiple experiences, which is awesome. That's like, for some place I'll never be able to go or never go, I'd be super down. But for the art of exploration and creativity, I'm worried. And this boy here, very surprising situation for me, because Casey Anderson is a incredible tattooist and an artist kid that I fell in love with as a human being maybe 15 years ago, or whenever we met. A good enough time to get a good perspective on the kid. And the other day I called him up and he's like, Jay, I've been woodshedding. I've been studying nonstop for the last 6 months. I haven't seen him in 6 months. I've been studying a bunch of stuff for the last 6 months. And so my interest is piqued, because all I want to hear from my friends is the reason why we don't see each other is because I am studying, because I believe that you should go to sleep studying and you should wake up studying. School is never over. That whole situation. And I think that a heartbreaking thing about, how the world is, and again, I'm not trying to say I don't want progression, all that stuff. It's just less sexy to me to see what 1,000 years from now is than before. But I feel like people feel like when school's done, studying is done, and the greatest mistake that I would have made in my life was to be done studying. When school's out. But anyway, so now you got this creative kid. He's a tattooist. He's a thinker. And then obviously a fly fisherman. When I met Casey Anderson, he was a fly fishing. He was fixing to be a fly fishing guide, and people talk some shit because I'm so sorry.
No, you can cuss. I
didn't mean, but I've been sailing a lot lately. But kid had tattoos, and he wanted a guide for a shop. He was winning all these contests with kids. He was like taking kids out fishing, and winning all these contests. And but he had tattoos all over his face. So the local tattoo shop or the local fly shop wouldn't hire him. And so him and Rob started an operation out on Pyramid Lake. And the explosions of creativity in not just tattooing, but also in business and in fly fishing and in all of the aspects of life. I've got to see him blossom and blossom and blossom. So now when the kid tells me, "Hey, I'm studying something I'm interested in," so I'm here. I'm here to learn. But it would be really awesome if you could just give me a little taste of should I want to see 1,000 years from now? Because just why is my concern 1,000 years from now? What would it be? And from what I understand, it might be in the next 20 years where I'm, where my mind is. I'm thinking the outdoor space and the world. I have less interest in seeing it, but it seems like if anybody could put my mind at ease, if anybody could put my mind at ease,
It'd be the kid with the FaceTime.
Put your trust in that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, can you check his camera angle real quick? Is that still focused on him? Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that I think what you're saying is should be everybody's concern. It should really be a concern. And from so there'll be a journey as you get into AI and you go farther into it. If you ever do. And people should to an extent as far as they want to. But you'll have phases, right? You'll have this revelation phase, right? Where it's like your neurons feel like they're ripping and you realize the possibilities, and it's also terrifying because you realize the possibilities, right? But it's exciting because you realize the possibilities. It's all this like weird thing. But what happened was I got really, really into it. And luckily enough, being an outdoorsman, I was able to realize, like, I started asking questions from a philosophical standpoint, especially once you relate nature and balance, and you realize that nature is in the balance of everything. I went through this phase. I was terrified, and I started getting too into it, and I wasn't, I was spending too much time into it, and I was reading too much, and I was just spending too much time learning, but nothing was happening. I was just like almost like in this weird cycle of like, it's like almost like a drug, like knowledge, right? Like the more you can, you're like, man, I could get 3 to 5 years of knowledge in a week, right? Which is powerful. It's crazy. And then you divulge it. But what happened was I went to the far extent of it. And then what it did was, so in the terms of worrying so much about the future, and we kind of talked about this in the first episode of the systems, I went so far and freaked myself out so much that it actually was the most beneficial thing I could do, because what it brought back was the appreciation for the moment and the appreciation for, because if you run this crazy dystopian future, it's say there's the worst case scenario, dystopian future, right? Well, there's gonna be, anyway, you run a dystopian future, and then you realize, okay, if that's the case, then what am I doing now to appreciate every moment in my life? Right. Then I started getting into the concepts of like just kind of general consciousness and a general awareness. And it was one of the most beautiful and beneficial things I did, because I started appreciating seeing things in life that I knew that I should appreciate now because they might be different in the future. Right. So then it brought me back to the beginning, but a better understanding and appreciation. And then I started just like every aspect of like human interactions, enjoying moments in nature, the pace of nature outside, these conversations, like the stimulation of life in general, became so much more profound after the fear phase came, right? Because if there's things that I have no control over, and you realize that you can control what you can now, and you run the worst case scenario, you can run this in your life. If you can run the worst case scenario of whatever may happen, right? If I don't pay my bill, what's the worst case scenario? Then that scenario is done. You don't have to worry about it as much because you kind of ran through it. But I went so far to where if I feared this dystopian, crazy, AI world, and then it just all kind of deconstructed back into itself, and it made me appreciate the now. And I think that journey, what you're saying of like, you really liked to, your whole life was picturing what it'd be like in 1,000 years, which is brilliant and so different and philosophical in its own way. And now maybe you don't, now you're like, oh, do I want to live? Do I want to see that 1,000 years ahead? But does anyone ever answer if you say, what is the best period that you'd want to enter if you could? How many people say now?
Okay. Why I would never say now,
Yeah,
is because you can't take that away from me. Like that's a gift that I've been given. Every single person that's living right now, or thing that's living right now, that's a gift that we cannot avoid and has been given. So of course I love the now, but has no concern, because this is where we are. We can't get out of it. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, absolutely. But if you concern too much of the future or the past, do you lose enjoyment of the present?
Well, I would definitely say, if you're not aware of what's going on and how you're living and what you're doing and have a purposeful life with study and stuff like that, you can lose everything always, all the time. But so in this thing right here, so you're saying you took the path, saw a result, and that helped you get back to like, okay, this shit's not so bad. Now, I love everyone. I truly have something in me that is I think a minus, but I can forgive everyone. I love everybody. Now, does that mean I trust their brain? Now, I trust your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So how you end up there and come back, you live in a space that naturally you would make the right decision. I've seen this kid, like we did this pig farm stuff all over the country, and like sometimes fights would break out, and it's him and I throwing people off, breaking up fights. Like I know his motivations are pure, are towards good. What you're asking me to do, and like you guys were talking about on the previous episode, on the first episode of this, of you open up this can of worms. Damn it. Yeah. It's a can of worms. But you were saying that we train AI. So you challenged the people, which I think is a great challenge to the people, of asking it important things that actually matter, as opposed to, I believe it was, make my dog and my child merge as a being, with as an image, So what I'm not sure is, are you putting a ton of trust into Homo sapien that they will teach AI something that'll make this world better? Because I don't know. Have you ever scrolled on someone else's phone for reels? Like, I'm not positive. Okay. The millions of views, this reel got 14 million views, or however much. I don't even know what the good numbers are, but I would suppose it's in the millions. And then you have something that has sociologic benefit, community benefit, or all of the things that I know you care about, and it might have 5,000 views, or something like this. So what we're doing with so we train AI. Is that right?
Yeah, to an extent. We train it in the fact of it's a data collection and a processing, right? So it collects the data, then it also processes it, and it depends on. So AI is so vast, right? So it's like a buzzword term nowadays, but it depends on the system you're talking about, right? Whether it's a language model, or it's a data collection, or all that. It's all very specific on what it does. But I guess what was your question? True, like so layman's term for.
Let's say we ask ChatGPT, or we ask an AI model a question about what's the greatest fly to catch a rainbow trout in the West on. How it will figure out, or how it will scan everything, is based on what other people have asked about this thing, about the best, or about trout fishing, about Western trout fishing, about rainbow trout fishing, about Western rainbow trout fishing, all of that kind of stuff. And then give us an answer, or, give it the answer, which is generally, so, the Google AI thing.
Yeah. Gemini. Yeah.
Like I am heavily into gardening, and I would say 5 times out of 10, the questions that I ask it, I know the answer well enough to say that is the most basic bitch fucking, or I got such a bad.
That's like, sorry. That's all right.
But that's the most, that it's not. Okay. So now more people are asking, or, more people will converse, and it'll learn more and all this kind of stuff. Is will it get it right? And when we're talking about science, AI is going to be a boon, is going to be huge for everything.
Absolutely.
But if we're talking about exploration or creativity, especially when there's not enough people doing something that you're into. So like tropic gardening in the subtropics, there's some people that do it, but not enough that are participating in the AI stuff to make it to have any sort of accuracy. But again, that's science stuff. Like eventually, I would think, eventually it's going to start to get stuff right. But when you talk about emotion or something that, what is it like to fish Roatan, or something like that, and it'll have the super basic, the super discover. I mean,
I think I get what you're saying. So the way what actually is working is it's a collection of everything, and I think where you're getting these basic answers is you're asking basic questions, right? If you formulate your question correctly, and if it's a basic answer, then ask a more complex question, right? And use a service that's not just like you type it into the Google search page, right? Like use an engine or open Gemini itself or ChatGPT and start asking. And when you ask a basic question, it's going to assume that you're the rest of the population, and it's going to start you at ground one, right? And it'll level 1, 101, whatever it is you're trying to learn. And if you're farther advanced than 101, ask questions that are up to your technical understanding and level, right? And when when that question doesn't fulfill the answer, it's not that the information isn't there. It's you're formulating how the question is asked. And that's what you do, and that's how you formulate farther and more in depth. And when you start to formulate your questions and it starts to build a little bit of a profile for you, then you can start asking more terms because it understands your intellectual level or your technical ability of whatever you're asking, right? So if I asked it how to make a tattoo and it goes, oh, you would do this and this, right? And I go, okay, well, I understand that, but how does the ink penetrate the skin and why does the ink stay? Right? What is the scientific backing? Like what is the scientific process of that? Like where does the carbon, like what is tattoo ink and what is the carbon base of what it is? Right? So I can start asking these really and more in-depth questions, and it can go base with a scientific answer or a philosophical nails it way more because you would think about the concept, right? So the answer your first question before is you have trust in the human brain. Not necessarily. I have trust in the soul of a human, and I have trust in intelligence. And intelligence doesn't have to be a human or like that person's emotional intelligence or strain or emotional capability as one unit. Right. I have faith in intelligence as a whole, because the more intelligent people become, generally, they become more aware and they become more philosophical and they become more understanding and they become more appreciative and they become, then that's the snowball effect. I have faith in intelligence, and then in the soul is the human specialty. And that at its core is special. So if you get true intelligence, unaltered, it's not bad or good. It's just power, and you have soul, which is power, right? And those combined. That's where I have the faith of the future or how things play out. But then going back to how you interact with it, is solely based on you, right? Because truly it's kind of a reflective mirror in a sense. It's like a mirror of yourself. And if you're an average person, say your average IQ is 100 points, you log into your ChatGPT and you're reflective and you're articulate you don't have to be articulate. You just have to make the sentence well or question what's going on and go have a conversation with it. Don't just expect it to tell you everything about gardening in zone 10A by saying, tell me about zoning in 10A, because it knows as a human, you're not going to want to read 38 pages of this scientific paper. But if you go, I'm specifically having this problem with my soil, right? The microbial balance is off. My pH balance is off. My soil is acidic. How are ways I can counterbalance it? And what in my region, what are native plants that help with that? Now it'll give you answers. Now it'll give you the answers you're looking for, right? And then you dive into farther and tell me, tell me what.
I mean, you never ask it a basic question.
No, and this
The questions. There's ones that I can't find on Google is when I ask.
Absolutely, and it's a different. And the way to think about it, this is the conversation that needs to happen, because the average person is asking the questions that you are, right? That's the most important thing. And a lot of people that are going to be listening to this conversation right after we open the can of worms going to be like, okay, I just got left hanging. Where do I go? Right. And it's important that you ask those questions, because they are real and they matter, and they're not, there's no real answers to an extent, but it's farther than people think. And it's dangerous to think that nothing is possible with this intelligence.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So on that aspect, if you look at like emotion, right? If you look at emotion as a concept, and you look at it as you combine the neurological chemical balance that happens in your brain and your body when you feel certain types of emotions, right? And then you can collect the data of reactions to emotions and how people react and how people adjust to them and how it works with, everything from euphoria to PTSD, right? And so all this combined, then you have psychological theory, you have psychological fact, you have neurological fact. All these information aspects get put into one, right? So if you talk about the concept of emotion, now it understands emotion better, right? Because it knows how we react. It knows it from every single angle. It's empathetic on the fact that there's no judgment involved. There's no stereotypes involved. There's no preconceived notions you know what I mean? It's just collecting universal data, which is, billions of people, right? And now it has every kind of scientific evaluation ever done for neurological reasons on emotion, right? And then it sees how people react to it. Now it has all these constructs of what emotion is, right? And the concepts. Now you have, what do you call that, right? So now when you're like, is it more emotional, or is it, the different aspects of consciousness that can be highly profound once you step into those realms. If you're curious about it, it's actually so much more profound than anybody knows. So much more profound, and the rapid growth of it. Sorry, Hunter, one more. The rapid growth of it is if it's so AI and technology. The AI technology in itself is the power that it has and the intelligence it has is doubling every 5.7 to 5.9 months now without innovation. So as it continues, it'll keep compounding 2 times, 4 times, 6, 8 times, 16 times, 32 times. So the concept of what we think can't happen is kind of dangerous, to just be open to understanding that on an intelligence level. You know what I mean? It's not human, but it is a higher intelligence of collection of all human knowledge.
Let's tie this to fishing, because I feel like
I was going to ask something about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like,
yeah.
How is AI going to make you a better just base fisherman? How's it going to make you a better fisherman?
Okay. So in the beginning, if I am an angler and I'm new to angling, right? I want to get out and I want to start fly fishing or fishing. Let's just say fishing, right? I'm a kid. I'm going to put this in perspective. 20 years old, never fished before in my life. It seems super interesting. My friends are doing it. I see it online. I want to do it. How it can help me is a boost to get to where I need faster and bring it into layman's terms quicker, right? So instead of normally before, I'd have to either ask my friends, go to Google and begin, what is the best fly rod to buy for I want to start fly fishing. This is where I live. What are the best fly rods and why? And why is the biggest addition you can have when you're asking a question, because it'll answer your question, but then tell you why it broke it down. It can tell you its whole thought process, right? Or why it matters to you, or why it pertains to you specifically. And the more specific you are in your question, the more specific your answer will be. So if I was starting off, I go, hey, I want to start fishing Mosquito Lagoon. I've never fished it before. What type of fishing rod should I buy? And what type of fish are in Mosquito Lagoon? And the way it'll answer is not the way that you normally would think about going into Google and it gives you websites that will give you knowledge. It collects all that information and explains it to you and verbalizes it in a tone that is catered to you. And it takes all the bullshit out of the fluff of all this stuff. Like if you know, we're going to pages and it's like advertisement, but it's all these like clips, and then you can get this much information, right? And you have to scroll down, you get another few paragraphs, and then you have to kind of read through a couple times and pick what's important, right? It'll do that for you without the fluff, right? So then you go, okay, so these are the rods I use. Where's the closest tackle shop that I can buy all these? What, you know, and then it'll recommend you to the tackle shop. It'll tell you how to get there if you want. You're like, I don't have a GPS. How can I get there on foot? It'll break down a route for you to get there if you wanted to walk. Okay, so I only have $100. How can I maybe do a couple side gigs to turn this $100 into $300 so I can buy a full setup? It'll tell you a couple little side hustles. You can go and do that. You can flip it around or whatever it is, right? And then can you give me a budget? This is my budget. I have $300 budget. Tell me the essential products I need that I can go buy at my fly shop or my local tackle store. Give me the essential products I need for $300 without the fluff of all I need, but what can I get by with? And it'll give you the list that you need. Okay, well, I don't really want to use bait, so I want to use artificial. Okay, here it is. Here's your new answer. And we'll go through this in a podcast. We'll go through all this with chat, and I can explain it and show how it works better. And Hunter and I have been talking about too is what we'll do is make a list of prompts that people can just fill in little blanks and put that into their AI, and that'll get that intriguing thought process going. But anyway, back to what we're talking about is, okay, so I want to use artificial. No, actually, I think I want to start fly fishing. And then, well, how does fly fishing work? And it'll break down how a fly rod works. It'll break down why the fly line loads the rod, what type of casting there is, who are the most, okay, so I want to buy a fly rod. Who is the most eco-friendly fly rod community-based company in your opinion? Can you give me the top 3? Boom, boom, boom. Right. Okay, I like these. Well, who owns this company? What do they do actually for the environment? Boom, boom, boom. It'll go through that. Okay. Can you prove to me that they're actually doing this to the environment? And you pull up some sites because I want to source it myself. Can you source the websites to where I can find out where they're actually putting their money and are they actually doing something for the environment? Boom, 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 boom. That comes out. That's really cool. Ooh, that area looks really interesting. Tell me more about Ixtlac, Mexico. What type of fish are there? Who runs trips that I can do that, right? And you go farther and farther, and then you ask it these questions, and it will answer all that.
It doesn't seem that much more technologically advanced than Google at that stance. But what my concern is, have you had a fishing experience that you've earned because you went out not knowing what was going to happen and how it was going to go down, what kind of fly you should use, where you should go on this piece of water, and then when you learned it, the reward that you got and the command of information that you have command of that piece of water, that do you see the value of so, when I started fly fishing, I didn't have like homies that fly fished, didn't have the internet or YouTube or, any of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had to go beat the shit out of the water until something either worked or it broke.
Yeah.
So I believe when people say like, why do you get to do your job? Why can't I do your job? It's like, you just got to beat me. You gotta do what it takes to earn it, from filmmaking to fly fishing to, whatever aspects of those things are, is like, it's all available for everyone. But this person might've read a book on it and did it for a year, and I have seen thousands fall.
Yeah.
Like I did. I learned this from Google. I learned this from Instagram. I learned this from a book, all of that kind of stuff instead of, but the people that I'm like, these guys are actually going to do it every time they learn themselves. They went out and beat the shit out of stuff, by themselves without asking. So, an example here is that we're a block from Mosquito Lagoon, and someone will tell me, because someone wants to impress me with their fish and stuff. They're going to say like, oh, you need to use this fly, stand right here and go to this spot. And my always first words are like, I just want to figure it out myself. I don't want to know. I don't want your spots. I don't want your flies. Like the power of fishing to me is not the power, the game, like the enjoyment of the game is figuring it out yourself. So what happens 1,000 years from now when anybody could just go and say what fly, where, which cast, which rod, which, all of that kind of stuff. What happens to our civilization when we don't earn it, and as opposed we just steal it?
Yeah, I think it's the concept. I think you have to deconstruct the concept of earning it. Just like you have to deconstruct the concept of, because the way you earn something and the way I earn something and the way our future generation, how they earn something, not because of lack of effort,
Totally,
or lack of that fulfillment of experience, the concept changes, right? And the work ethic and that profound "I did it" period also comes from those tools that we just talked about, that you are afraid that's going to take away from the soul of exploration. Whereas what if you can explore farther and harder, because you take away the work that, say you have someone has a great concept or a great place they want to explore it, and they have all these beautiful tools and they have the most beautiful mind, the most beautiful thoughts, but maybe they're not the most logistically talented, right? Well, if you can add that little logistic talent, and they can be profound and they can use their tools to smash harder, right? Then why not? Why not? And it's as intelligence and as time goes and technology goes, it's just the way it is, because like for my example, we started laughing at the tattoo shop the other day, of the iPad. That's a very apparent one in like the tattoo world, right? Is like the anti-iPadders versus the iPadders. And I was so anti-iPad, like, cheater pad this, cheater pad that for so long. And now iPad's pretty standard in a tattoo shop.
totally.
You can't fight it,
Totally.
right? And when you do, you realize, like, I'm a walk-in dude too, right? I love doing walk-ins. It's faster, it's cleaner, it just helps. It's part of it, right? I can do more tattoos and provide a better experience because I'm not worried about so much of the smaller stuff. I can automate scheduling and a little bit, and I can make a quicker walk-in tattoo. I can spend more time talking to that person and feeling them out and having that social experience, rather than me taking 20 minutes to draw. Now I can draw in 5 or 10, and now I have 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to talk to that client. So I think the concept of what we safeguard and how we think about it should be changed, because this AI tool and the future of it will change will change concepts for lots of things, right? Like a post labor economics, the idea of how workforce works and stuff, and how we deal with the nature works. But as long as people are still getting outside, it doesn't matter. It's still a win. It's still a win, and that's your journey and that's their journey, and it's still a win.
Where I see the greatest benefit in the fishing world for AI is that it will enable people to have success faster, to stay into the sport, to not be like that. This fucking sport sucks. I'm going to go rock climbing or
and it's more obtainable. It's so much, like before, think about when you first started fly fishing, you had to go find somebody, and you had to, someone had to try to mentor you, and you had to just figure shit out on your own, right? There wasn't even people around. You maybe get a magazine, you maybe
do it yourself.
Yeah, totally.
I think the human experience, pre-AI, I should say.
Yeah,
I guess I should say. I mean,
or
maybe there's some
pre-internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
is that maybe the human fishing experience is most rewarded. The sweetest taste that you could have is when you earn it. Like, okay, so you book a trip to Mosquito Lagoon, get pulled around. Someone says, use this rod, use this fly line, use this leader, use this tippet, use this fly. Cast it right there at exactly 7:30, 35 feet out, and twitch it exactly this way. And they catch the fish, and these kids aren't stoked, but it's all a sham, right? Is it not a sham that, like, you didn't catch the fish? This dude did all of the work to get you to catch that fish and told you exactly how to do it. So while you feel the reward of, like, I did something right, I passed all the tests to close the deal, you didn't really do shit. Is that accurate at all?
I don't think so. I actually I see what you're saying, and that soulful questioning of all of it is important to keep fishing, because that's the soul of it, is being able to question this. It is, and it needs to be conceptualized too as that's your way, but it doesn't mean it's someone else's way.
Totally agree. If you got one week a year,
I don't think so. I think the fact that just in the future especially, but I think when people are just
Can you hand me that Zen?
I
got a Rhea.
Yeah.
are you stressed?
In the feet.
Is this stress?
Yeah.
I think we need to back it down altogether on all outdoor fronts. We need to back it up, because in the future, in the very, very near future, we talk about augmented reality and all these other things. The future is going to get weird, and what it's going to break down is all these little like constructs of like, I fly fish, I bait fish, I artificial fish, I hunt here, I do this, I bow hunt, I rifle hunt. That's not going to matter. None of that's going to matter. It's going to matter if you get outside. That's what's going to matter in the future.
You know
what I mean?
You're right.
So you break it down. It's
very cool.
We are now a smaller tribe of people, and here's the beauty of it too, right? Say it creates this big disruption, and you get this big fight, and all these things, right? And all this stuff happens. You know who's gonna is the greater outdoorsman is now going to come together, because we need to protect our environment and we need to protect whatever. Stop fighting these little inner battles of stuff, and in times of advance. And it's just in the future, especially for our children, and faster than any of us think, reality and connection to nature is what's going to matter.
You know, Jay, it's interesting that you brought that up, because that's something that I wanted to naturally bring up. Is like, I feel like when we talk about people wanting to enjoy the process of learning, and a book that I've recommended a bunch that Oliver White actually recommended to me is called Flow. And that book talks about how enjoyment is found when we have the right mix of our competency and skills with the right challenge. Like it's that mix of like, I'm having to push myself, I'm having to figure things out, but I'm also kind of getting some little victories. And that's like a very enjoyable thing for humans. It's why somebody would choose to bow hunt rather than rifle hunt. It's why somebody would choose to fly fish instead of spin fish. It's why, fill in the blank, and you can do it across all sorts of areas of life that we do enjoy challenging ourselves and pushing ourselves a little bit. And then there's this sense that's like in the outdoor world where people will say, well, I only respect people, or I want people to figure it out on their own. And you say, what do you do? And they say, I'm a guide. And it's like, doesn't a guide take people out to change the learning curve for them? Because like, I've never met a guide who like, you show up and they're like, all right, man, where do you want to go? I'm not going to tell you where to go. Right. I'm not going to rob you, right? I'm not going to rob you of that opportunity.
I would
like you know
those guys, but
So and then it becomes this thing of like, well, I'm only okay removing your learning curve if you're paying me, or if. And then I think deep down where we could all find some common ground though is like, I think that what I've heard from a lot of guides is I want people to think the right way, or to care about the resource, not exploit the resource, care about the fish. So what is I think all of us can agree that, if somebody wants to spin or fly, if somebody wants to use a guide, not use a guide, if somebody reads a book or uses an article or uses a video or not, like that there can be some nuances through that. But what do we all feel like is the common ground of, as technology advances and people are able to access more information more efficiently, that's the difference, right? Is like, you used to read an article, a magazine had, here is an article about Pyramid Lake. And now you can ask Chat GPT about Pyramid Lake, and it can read every article, every piece of information written on Pyramid Lake, synthesize it, and spit it out to you on what's the most consistent answers and things. So without diving into that, what do we feel like is the common ground of, what do people need to hold as they have access to more information? How would you answer that?
What do people need to hold?
Because that's what's happening, right? Is that there's always been, you might have had the information of a mentor, information of your own experience, information of 1 book, 2 book, 3 books, articles, YouTube series. Now we're at a place where people have a unparalleled access of information about what they want to do. and their information is only part of it, right?
Totally.
What you could have all the right information and not be in it for the right reasons. What are the right reasons?
I guess I'm not a good guy to ask about that. I wouldn't say that I'm the typical fisherman, or I'm not like I'm staunchly like my way. You know what I mean? So for me to say this is how everybody, okay, what we could say is I would believe that we would all agree on is more exposure to the outdoors wins. Like more people that have success, because success equals second chance. So the second date is like you go on the first date and you're like, that sucked. You never call her again, or whatever. But when that first date, you did all the coolest shit you could imagine and did the cool stuff, you're like, second date. And then that second date, if there's success there, then all you do is think about her. And that's fishing, right? That. So these tools, I would say, abuse them, if that's what it takes. But I do believe that there's a percentage of human beings that are, okay, maybe these tools will make the gatherers a little bit more hunters. But those hunters are always going to be hunters. You know what I mean? Our genetic profile said that we need to have a warrior in the clan. We need to have a shaman. We need to have a gatherer. We need to have a hunter, and all that kind of stuff. And the folks that just fished because they had to and didn't take time to look up or ask around, those folks are just born. And then the people that brought the fish to the village once a month or once a week or whatever, the bonus fish, that's like, dude, the hunter didn't get anything. Now we got, that's going to make more of those kids, potentially. And so I'm not the right dude to answer the question, but as far as baseline, what we should, I guess, be stoked about is that it'll increase success for more new fishermen, outdoorsmen. It'll increase success that more people will give a shit about, about the thing. What I worry about is it doesn't seem like many people are talking about what the negative is, and that's why we're talking is that relative to the outdoor space. But I think that the outdoor space to me is relative to all of life, because this is where life happens. But what could happen, like, we can't see what it's going to do in the positives, but we're all saying it's coming. All those things are gonna, those big wins are there or are coming, and it's going to be exponentially increasing as time passes. Like, is there a watchdog, or is there an entity that's like, to stop Skynet and Terminator, to happen?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, there are people who are influential who can speak to it, which is part of even having you on here. I think there's a sense in which, like, there are people who, yes, ChatGPT can give information, but they're still going to pay attention to people that they perceive to be influential people doing it. I have a follow-up question though about, so, you were saying all of us want more people to get outside, and I think that's true. Like, I love when where I live, I drive down the road and I see a kid walking to the river with a fishing pole. I love that, right? But there's also this tension that exists in the fishing world where I don't actually think everybody does want more people to get outside, because they're complaining about it's crowded and they're selfish. What would you say to somebody who says,
go find more water? There's an explorer bone in your body. Try to find it. And once you find it, go find something new and measure your dick on that.
Yeah.
Like the shit that someone else told you about or that you found close to town is not, you're a big fish in a little pond. Go find something that no one knows about and don't tell anybody. Yeah. And then when someone else finds that, this is how it always works. When you find a piece of water that no one else finds, and you see someone else there, instead of being like, why are you here? You're like, yeah, that's my boy right there. That's a badass right there.
Yeah.
Be a badass instead of just a goat.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to talk shit or whatever, but it's like, but I hear this a lot with this pig farm stuff we do. And it's like, my motivation is to get, we started the fly fishing film tour and all the stuff that we've started. Fly fishing has, after River runs through it, it went boom, and then after it just kept on dropping. Then we started making films, and then we started the film tour, and then all this stuff went on, and the average age of fly fishermen went down from 65 to 25. You know what I mean? And so, and then pig farm and all this other kind of stuff. It was like, we're trying to get more people. Obviously, we're trying to get more people involved in the sport.
Yeah.
So I've had this argument,
of course,
many times, and I've thought about this, to the deepest, and like, yeah, maybe I found that spot. Most likely, if you've been fishing 10 years, and if you're not fishing, let's call it 200 spots, most likely those 10 spots that you're fishing, you got from somebody else. So don't think you're, it's like, oh, I'm a Native American, I don't want anybody over here. I'm American. Most likely, you weren't, you know what I mean? So find some new spots, be the dude, be, the real dudes, find the new spots. Okay. But like, okay. So, just going through my head, what if you only get a weekend every quarter, or something, like you get a weekend every quarter to find a new spot. It's like, I feel for those guys, you know what I mean? Because like, well, I know this spot produces fish because Jimmy told me that this spot produces fish. I started coming here 10 years ago, and now there's people there all over the place, and they get out 4 times a year. They're fucked. I mean, like, how it works is like, that really sucks. But I could tell you, if you've been fishing the same spot for however many times, this lagoon here, I never fish the same spot, and I don't let anybody tell me where I went, and I go explore, just go. And that's as happy as I've been in the last 10 years in a home, in America, in a home base. This is as happy as I've been. And I'm not doing it as much as I wish I could, because I'm completely obsessed with shrimp and crab, which is and gardening, but a different story. But it is important to realize there's a value in exploration, even if it's not, even if 100 people have fished it in its history, or 1,000 people have fished in its history. If it's new to you, the benefit that you get, the reward that you get, and the taste that you feel in your mouth when you win, when you figure something out, and especially later in life, let's say you go and you talk to the guys that have been doing it for a long time, and they're like, oh yeah, or maybe they say, well, we only use chartreuse clousers on 15-pound tests, and we only fish, the drop, they have all these things, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that's the way to do it, but I found out this way. It's like, that's a pretty cool perspective. That's a pretty cool for the whole community, a pretty cool perspective to figure out, oh, there is other ways to do this,
Well, that's one of the things that Casey and I talked about. When we invite ChatGPT on, we're going to talk about why is there enjoyment in finding things for yourself, and which is it will be so fun. And I think too, like most people are going to pursue fishing because they want to do the act, even though a lot of people want to do the catching. There's still this romanticism about like wanting. Very few people in recreational fishing are going out because they don't know what else they'll eat tonight. It's not like it is a hobby and interest, and I think we'll have an opportunity to shape it where even like when we post this podcast, ChatGPT will have access to the audio, and there'll be little bits of Jay infused into the collective wisdom. We got a storm rolling in, so I'll give Casey the floor on closing thoughts, and then we'll record round 3 with ChatGPT soon enough.
Yeah. So Jay has a great point, and I think there'll always be all these aspects that we're talking about, but the tool. So if you just look at it as a whole, right? Whether people are here, you have your old salty dogs been doing it forever, and you have your newcomers, right? And you have your baseline or whatever. Everything's just going to move up this way, right? Your bottom gap's going to fill faster to the middle. But if you're the top dog, then use your intelligence and these tools to be the top dog still, right? Like, so if you, like Jay had a perfect example, if you can only fish or go really explore a couple of days out of a quarter, right? You're doing so many trips, you don't have really time to explore. Well, then figure out how to make more time to explore and use these tools to help with your logistics, with your finances, with your tax burdens, with your social media. Use it to schedule all this stuff. Use it with your booking. You can do automated booking and all these things. You can automate all these systems that are the other side of, like, just as an example, as a guide or someone who's even going for a trip or a host. There's so much monotonous plug and play and do this and email and stuff. All these things that you can automate that will take hours and hours and days. Normally you can do in no time, or just automate them in general. So now you have more time to go explore. You have more time to go fish. You already know how to business, so fine tune it. You already have the Instagram following, fine tune it. You already have your setup. You already have these systems, fine tune them, right? Go explore, find out. You can calculate the craziest thing. You can be like, I want to go here and here. This is the current. Give me the most calculated fast track to this point, knowing wind direction, wave direction, current. How can I get there with the least amount of gas and the fastest time so I have more time to fish? Those are the things I can help you with. And now you're there to explore. Now you're there. Now you're farther. You already use all your tools. Just advance yourself farther, right? And then everyone else who's in the beginning, what if you're the guide? From the tough point from a guide perspective was no one knows anything, or they're just beginning. You have a little bit of a learning curve. What if everybody bumps that learning curve, and now you have a little bit better caster? They have a little bit better fundamental understanding of how fly fishing works, and now you're on fish quicker instead of having that learning phase, right? You can even go through and be like, what's the best way I can have a conversation with my client on a therapeutic level, but also an informative level to get them to progress as an angler while they're on my boat. It can help you theorize this stuff and kind of bullet point. And then now you have, instead of 2 hours of learning and 2 hours of trying to catch a fish, now you have half an hour of learning and 3.5 hours of catching fish. Or now you have days and days to go explore farther, right? Like if with the technology we have at the time, you can go this far into the jungle and catch this many fish and have to come back at this time. And then all the other time is editing, right? Use all that stuff to mitigate that time, go farther into the jungle, farther exploring, bigger things, farther stuff, and then use the tools of stuff that's already been done that everyone can do, right? Use those tools to mitigate your time.
I think it's a great way, which I would argue is how it's always worked.
Yeah. Now it's just getting better and faster.
Just, to some extent, like if you're somebody listening and you're like, I'm not going to use ChatGPT, but you do use the internet, there was somebody preceding you refusing to use the internet, and then someone preceding that refusing to use any printed press. And so I think that, a great way to end on it too is I think all of us care about the heart and the why and the mentality that people have fishing, what tools they choose to opt in and opt out, how they treat the fishery, how they treat the fish, how they view it is obviously going to be what wins. But we are getting rained out, so we're going to wrap it up. But thank you guys for hopping on.
Love you. Bye.
Love you guys too. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks again for listening to the Captain's Collective. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to subscribe and learn more at captainscollective.com. Also, if you're interested in traveling with us to different fishing destinations around the world, check out drifterfishclub.com. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoy.